All right, welcome. So now we're going to be taking a look at SQL injection, or everyone's favorite thing, right? So let's go ahead and click over on the SQL injection, and we'll see where we can get with this. So we see this user ID here, right? Something you always want to do whenever we see any type of application, any type of area that we can input something into, we always want to fuzz it, right? We already did command injection, we did file inclusion, right? We're trying to fuzz different things. We're looking at it, and we're saying, okay, what can we actually do here, right? Maybe I'll do a peer-free slash. Maybe I'll do local file inclusion, whatever else. Maybe I'll do command injection here, right? Maybe I'll do something like that, and that doesn't work. That's okay. So one of the things we always want to try is a single apostrophe there, and we see that we have an error in our SQL syntax, which that's going to tell us that most likely we have SQL injection, right? Now something that you're going to get told throughout time is just to do an or 1 equals 1. Tack, 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 enter. All right, that is both good and bad. Okay, we dropped the database, yeah, sure, but you can actually literally delete a database off a system. So if you were to do this in real life on an actual network, you do not want to run or 1 equals 1. All right, that is one thing that you need to understand about or 1 equals 1. You can actually delete the database by accident. Okay, why does 1 equal 1 work? Because 1 always does equal 1, so it's always true, so that's why it drops the entire database. Now, something we can do is once we see that we have an error in our SQL syntax, we can start to kind of, we'll say, manually fuzz this, right, and see if we can start to drop tables. So we can say order by, and this is just SQL syntax. That's what we're doing here. We're just doing different types of SQL syntax. We're just going to say 1. Tack, tack, tack. And what we're doing is we're seeing, do we get an error? And we did not. We did not get an error. So now we're going to do the same exact thing, right? And we're just going to say order by 2. We still did not get an error. Let's try to say that thing. Order by 3. And we get an error. So now we know now that there are 2 tables in here. All right. So that allows us to be able to look at it and say, okay, cool. What can we actually do with that information, right? Another way to be able to do this is we could order by 1, 2. Okay? Order by 1, 2, 3. And we get an error again, right? So there's no third table in here. That's why we get an error. Table 1, 2 exists. Table 3 does not. So now what we want to do is we want to see if we are able to drop a database. All right, and I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to grab, let's say, I don't know, one of the things for the class here. We'll try the one for DVWA. Actually, let's go ahead and show that we have DVWA access first. And instead of typing this whole thing out, I'm just going to grab something from the class. All right, come over here. And we can go ahead and copy that in. We'll hit submit. And we do. Okay, we see this different table come down. And that was literally within the PDF. That was line number 2 during SQL injection after union select null database. Okay, so that's what I did. And we see we have DVWA here. And we're on DVWA right now. That means that we can run SQL queries on DVWA because we can see that database. So let's go ahead and let's run an SQL query on DVWA. And then we're going to show you the automated way of doing this much more easily, much easier. Okay, so we'll run a query on DVWA. And we can see that we have a guest book and users. So now we want to be able to drop that users table, right? That would be kind of what our concept is there, is to drop that users table. So again, just going back to the class, he copied and pasting the command in here so we're not typing out all day, especially since SQL syntax does get pretty nasty. There we go. All right, we're able to drop the user table. We see user ID, first name, passwords, all those kind of things, right? So we could dive deeper and we could end up dropping the passwords. We could dive deeper, end up dropping each of the users, really whatever we want to do. All right, but another thing we could do is we could run SQL injection. Okay, so to be able to do this, the easiest way to do it, or SQL map, excuse me. We're already running SQL injection, SQL map. Okay, actually I want to show one more thing before we actually show SQL map. I have this ID equals A. Let's go ahead and fuzz it, the location, right? We've been talking about fuzzing so far all the way up to this point. So let's go ahead and let's fuzz that location. So let's do a fuff again, right? I'm going to go ahead and copy my last command because it already has my PHP session ID, my cookie information in there, right? We'll delete the URL here. What we're going to do this time is we're going to say at that A, we are actually fuzzing, right? So we're going to fuzz. We're going to fuzz it with SQL injection. So we can say SQL. And remember, you could also do this with burp suite, right? SQL injection. And we're just going to say quick SQL injection.txt. Let's see if we get anything back. And we do. Okay? It's saying that this, like right here, is bringing back a different number of words than what everything else is. If we enter here, we can see that we're getting stuff back, right? Admin or 1 equals 1. Okay, but we're getting these lines. But just showing this, like right here, that this one's bringing back something different, that's showing us that, hey, we probably have SQL injection here. Or something like this. This is bringing back something different, right? We probably have SQL injection here. So if we were to copy that command, throw it into here, or curl it, right, we see that we have an error in our SQL syntax. Cool. So we now know that, yep, we do have it. All right, so let's go ahead, and we could also, have used curl to drop that down, like I was saying. So let's use burp suite now. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it something easy to look at. We're just going to say A. Okay. And we'll use burp suite, and we're going to intercept the request. When we intercept that request, we can actually save that request to a file. Once we save that request to a file, from there what we can do is we can upload that file into SQL map. Now we could just put the cookies, everything down in SQL map, but let's see how to save a file, throw it in SQL map, and we'll go from there. So as we start burp suite here, remember we do need to turn on intercept, right? We need to intercept the request here. It's going, there we go. Okay, so we'll go to proxy here. We'll intercept is on. I haven't started up this machine in a while if you can't tell. All right, always turn that part off unless you actually want to do a live passive crawl. Always pause that. We'll go back to proxy. Intercept is on. We already have turned on our Foxy proxy over here, right? And we'll go ahead and we'll hit submit. Now we should have intercepted that request. Maybe put in like a different user ID or something like that. B. And try that. There we go. Okay, so we intercepted that request. Now we right click and we go to save item. We're going to save this in our file there, right? Somewhere easily accessible, like where you can find it again. So we'll save it in here, in our folder that we have. If I can click on it, everything's moving a little slow on the computer like right now. And we'll save that as SQL.txt. So that's saved. Now what we can do is we can do an SQL map, tac R, SQL.txt. And okay, yep, it says that it looks like the backend database is MySQL. Sure, let's continue. And now it's only going to use MySQL because it asked me, do you want to just do that? Sure, why not? This is going to go through, and it's going to try different SQL queries against the target for SQL injection, and it's going to try to see, does it have SQL injection on it? But we can see all this information down here. That means that we have SQL injection. What we can do now is drop the database. Now, one thing, SQL map already knows that this has SQL injection on it, so the next part's going to be a lot faster. What else we could do is we could tell it just, hey, I want you to use your default values, right? So all these questions, go ahead and you answer them for me, whatever your default value is, right? We can do that with batch. It's going to go through and it drops the databases. Now let's say I want to look at DVWA. I can do a tac D, DVWA. That's my database, right? Tac tables. Oh, there's guest booking users. Okay, cool. Tac T. I have my tables here. Let's do users. Whoops. Tac columns. Right, I can see we have user here, user ID. Let's go ahead and just try user. Tac C user, tac dump. And that's going to try dump out the user table. Now what else I can do, okay, it says blank for everybody. What else we could do is we could just say, hey, I just want to dump this whole table, this whole user's table, right? So let's try tac dump like right there. And then we're going to dump out the passwords, all this other stuff, right? Now, SQL map will also try to crack the hashes that it finds. Right, so it's finding a lot of MD5 hashes in here, and it tries to crack them for us. Now, obviously, if we didn't do that tac batch, we could say no for wanting to do a dictionary attack against them. We could say no, and we could grab those hashes and try to use hashcat or something along that lines to be able to crack it. That's something we're going to do later on. But we see that we have all these different users now in DVWA, which we didn't know about before, and we have their passwords also, right? And all that came from that SQL injection, and SQL map was able to output everything for us. So SQL map is a super powerful tool. Let's go ahead and try it with SQL map. Tech H, and we'll look up grep for cook again. Let's try to find cookie. Okay, cool. So we can actually put cookies into this. So let's do an SQL map. So if we didn't want to save the file, what we could do, or didn't want to start Burp Suite, or I don't know, he was just not having it that day, right? We go ahead and grab this. We can say, hey, I want you to look at this page like right here. Now, whenever you do this, that ID equals A, you want to keep it something that's generic. You don't want to put in SQL. You don't want to do like an apostrophe or something like that in there. Keep it something generic, okay? Or else SQL map will yell at you about it. Then we'll do a tac cookie, right? We have our PHP session ID, and that's going to equal, let's see here, let's go ahead and grab it. See, real hackers will remember their PHP session ID. All right, we'll throw that into there. And then we could also, I don't know, maybe we could do another cookie header or something like that. Or we might have to do like a semicolon and put another one in there. We'll see. Cookie security equals low. Let's try like that. Tac batch. Looks like it's asking us to log in, so it may not like this. Tac, or let's actually do our all of our tacs up here. We'll just try to drop that database again, right? And we'll see, is it going to drop that database? And yes, it does. Okay, so that's with our tac cookie. It's throwing those cookies across over it, and we're able to get it here. We're able to dump that database again. Obviously, it didn't go through everything again because it already has this information in it where it sees that, hey, yeah, I already know that this is the password, this is the users, things like that. But we saw that cookies did work, so we're able to utilize those cookies also. All right, so hopefully you learned something about SQL injection. This is probably one of the things that people are afraid of the most is SQL injection. Later on in this course, when we're looking at Windows, we'll also be looking at MS SQL injection, which I actually find to be a little bit easier. But a lot of it is really just trying to figure out how the table is created and things like that. Just figuring out how does the table actually work, how is it created, and trying to put yourself in the mind of the person that created the database. All right, so hopefully you all liked it, and I'll talk to you all later.